sponsor of tonight's meeting, South Mountain Peace Action. We have a tremendous speaker this evening, Matthew Ho, who is, I'm going to give you a full biographical introduction. It's quite fascinating. He's going to speak for about 45 minutes, and then we're going to have roughly half hour left for questions and answers. Everyone is entitled to a minute if you want to make a statement. And then if there's more time for follow-up questions or comments, obviously you can go, but I want to try to get everybody an opportunity to ask questions or make comments. Before I start the introduction, I want to make a couple of brief preliminary remarks about the subject of tonight's meeting, which is the war in Afghanistan. And what I'm going to say is based on some fairly extensive research that I did over the summer, which I've posted on our group's website, South Mountain Peace Action, www.beaboutpeace.com. And there are pages and pages of documents, some of which relate to what I'm going to comment on just right now. One point I want to make is that the issue in Afghanistan is embedded with the concept of Islamic extremism. One of the premier authorities on Afghanistan, a historian and journalist, Ahmed Rashid, wrote the following in his book, Taliban. Traditionally, Islam in Afghanistan has been immensely tolerant to other Muslim sects, other religions, and modern lifestyles. Before the Taliban came to power in 1996, there was no universal standard of tradition or culture for women's role in society, nor had any Afghan ruler before the Taliban ever insisted on such dress codes as compulsory beards for men and the burqa. 40% of Kabul's women worked, both under the communist regime and the post-1992 Mujahideen government. Women with even a smattering of education and a job exchanged their traditional clothes for skirts, high heels, and makeup. They went to the movies, played sports, and danced and sang at weddings. That was before the Taliban. Now, the point I want to make is that what occurred after the takeover by the Taliban, which was the most extreme version of Islam that's ever been imposed, which included total subjugation of women to the extent where they're virtually not allowed out of the home. The United States bears most of the responsibility for that happening. And most people are aware that during the 1980s, the United States financed, trained, and funded extremist Islamic organizations known as the Mujahideen in the battle against the Soviet occupation. However, what isn't so widely known is that the United States started funding these organizations before the Soviet occupation. And that's a piece of information which was revealed in two places by in an interview with Zbigniew and Mika's father. And also in the memoirs of Robert Gates. He's very specific that they started the destabilization program well before the Soviet invasion. So to that degree, we are responsible for everything that followed, including the Soviet invasion. But even more important than that, after the Soviets decided they wanted to leave, they approached the United States with a proposal of creating a coalition government among the groups that the Soviets were supporting, as well as the Islamist groups. And the United States flat out rejected that. And this is also documented in Ahmed Rashid's book, as well as in a recent article he wrote in the New York Review of Books. So it was possible that a coalition could have been formed prior to the Taliban even existing. The Taliban didn't even exist until after the Soviets withdrew. And there was a civil war that ensued, and then they came to power So this is very relevant because there are a lot of discussions today about creating a coalition involving the Taliban. And I think that's going to be one of the topics that Matt's going to spend a lot of time on. But the other interesting aspect of this is that the group that the United States was trying to destroy and that the Soviet Union was supporting during the 1980s is virtually the same group that the United States is supporting today in Kabul. They're basically those elements in Afghan society who advocate rights for women or looking toward a more modern society as opposed to the more traditionalist parts of Afghanistan. So I just wanted to sort of say those things to put the whole situation in context. And now I'd like to introduce Matthew Ho. And I've gotten this information about Matthew's biography from basically two places. From the Washington Post article of October 27, 2009, which is also linked on our website. It was an article about Matthew Ho's letter of resignation from the Foreign Service. And in that article, there's a lot of biographical information as well as references to the letter, his letter of resignation. And if you received a program, you'll see that we've got the text of his letter of resignation on the back of the program. It's a wonderful document. It continues to educate and elucidate the situation. So Matthew is from New Jersey. He's the son of a firefighter. He grew up in Bergen County and eventually moved to Clinton, New Jersey, where he graduated from North Hunterdon High School. He went on to graduate from Tufts University and went to work for a publishing firm. Shortly during that period, shortly thereafter, he joined the Marines in 1998 and served active duty for 5 years, in part in Japan and then for part of the time at the Pentagon. When his active duty commitment came up, he went on to work for the Defense Department as a civilian in Iraq, where he managed reconstruction efforts in the town of Tikrit. In 2006, he volunteered for the Marines. He went back to the Marines and assumed command of a company in Anbar province in Iraq. He returned home in 2007 with citations for bravery and what Matthew himself later recognized was post-traumatic stress disorder. And a lot of that post-traumatic stress disorder came about as a result of an incident in which there was a helicopter crash